Hey guys, welcome back to the Joy of Wrenching. I'm Les, your friendly neighborhood mechanic, and today I'm back on the pontoon restoration of this 24-foot Playcraft double-decker. And today we're going to crawl underneath the boat. And I know you may be saying, well, why are you going under the boat? You're not even done taking down the upper deck yet. Well, we got the majority of the upper deck done, taken off, but as you can see, all of the structure comes down and bolts to that lower level. And to get to all the bolts and everything underneath the lower level on the bottom of the floor, we need to get underneath the boat. And I want to show you that there's a few things in the way, but it's no big deal. Come along as we get into it. All right, so we're going to crawl underneath here, and the reason why, let me bring you in here, is because we need to get to the bottom of the floor. But if you notice, we can't do that because we've got a aluminum underskinning. It goes all the way to the back of the boat. Now, this is a good thing. This isn't a sign of a good quality build, is they underskin the boat, and Playcraft does everything top notch. So we're going to have to remove this, and then we'll have access to the underside of the floor, so we can get to the bolts and all the other things that we might need to down there, wiring and all of that. And as you can see, this is riveted in place, which means, and look on down there, you can see miles and miles of rivets. That means that we're going to have to crawl under here, use some eye protection, and I've got some long sleeves and everything. We're going to get all those rivets out, and I'll show you how to do that next. All right, so I'm underneath the boat here, and we are going to remove each and every one of these rivets to get this underskinning down. In order to do that, we're going to have to drill out the heads of these rivets. So get yourself a drill and a drill bit that's about the size of the head or a little bit bigger than the head of that rivet. And you just want to drill until the top of that rivet pops off. So I'll show you. There we go. You see how the top of the rivet there just came off? Now, there's just a little bit of a nub left through there. You don't want to go too deep. Just make sure that you get the majority of that rivet off of there. You might choose to do it sort of like I'm doing it, you know, pushing the button just a few at a time, just so you don't go too fast. There goes that rivet top. See that? Okay. So now, once you get them out of the way, let me go ahead and remove this last one right here, and then I'll show you what the next step is. There we go. Okay, now that you've got those rivets out of the way, you want to get some kind of a pry tool. I've got a heavy-duty screwdriver here. You want to come and pop the remaining bit of that rivet through. See that? Now that's free. And all there is left to do now is go through all 1,000,002 of these rivets that hold this skinning to the bottom of the boat. And there's really no right or wrong way to do this other than just to be safe, guys. You know, again, you're creating metal shavings. You don't want them to get into your eyes or whatever. You know, long sleeves and gloves. Just, you know, be safe, guys. I'm going to start here in the front and just work my way back. This is a pretty heavy gauged aluminum that Playcraft uses for this underskinning. It's not some chintzy little aluminum can type material, so it's going to take a little while, but the good news is that this stuff is reusable, and like I said, we're going to be reusing everything that we can on this boat, or refurbishing it. So I'm going to do this, and we'll just have you guys kind of watch from afar, let's say. Okay, so I've run into a little bit of an issue here. One of these rivets, and you may find this as well, still has a steel core of the pop rivet that did not pop away. So we're going to have to get a punch, put it on this little steel piece that's rusted right there, and try to punch that through. So I'm going to go get a punch now, and I'll show you how that's done. Okay, so now that I've pushed that center steel portion in just a little bit with the hammer there, I've got a smaller diameter head on this punch that's just about the right size to continue pushing that through the opening in the rivet. So let me see if I can get in here around you guys. I'm going to set that right on top of that rivet, center portion of that steel. All right, now that the camera's a little bit out of the way, I can get in here with a small punch and try and pop that rest of that steel core up through that rivet. There we go. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see what we've done now. We've popped that steel core up through there, and now our bit has a place to grab and is not going to try and walk off that steel core, and it'll actually stay centered up on that rivet. All right, let's get that out of there now. There we go. Okay, I've got all of the rivets out of this one panel here, so at least back to that part right there so that it can come down. It's kind of wedged in along the sides sometimes, the way that they bend these to fit real nice and flush like they do. But we're going to take our screwdriver or pry tool, whatever you want to use, and we're going to start popping it loose and see where we can get. There we go. You might have to pry in on the sides a little bit to release those sides down. Okay. Look at that. Well, that thing is a tight fit. I may not be able to get this thing out of here without removing the boat, or at least this part here, so that I can slide it out the front. So let me show you. We've got her down and loose, but it can't slide straight down because of these splash guards here, and it looks like we're going to have to remove it by sliding it forward, because you know, obviously it's too wide here to slide backwards in anyway, so we're going to need to slide it forward. This portion of our trailer is actually in the way. No big deal, because that part of the trailer is just bolted to it down here, and so worst case scenario, we can unbolt this portion of the trailer and slide it out. Of course, I'm lazy and I'm trying to see, you know, what's the bare minimum I need to do, and so I'm going to try first to remove just this bunk right here, and maybe that will give me enough room to kind of slide it up here, and maybe that'll be enough to, you know, be able to rotate it a little bit and then, you know, pop it loose or past the little splash guards and then completely out, but we'll see. Okay, so let's get this thing out of here. I've got 19 millimeter in this case. I'm going to chalk it up in the impact and make quick work of it. All right, there's that, and we'll go ahead and keep our little washers and everything in safe. I'll wiggle this thing loose. Can rotate that and wiggle it. Let's get that bolt out of there. Come on. There it goes. There we go. Now that can come off. Now let's just see. Let's just see if we're going to be lucky here. Reorient you a little bit. Okay. Forward. Let's see if we can't rotate it now. Just enough. Somewhere or other. I think I might just be able to get past that. Okay. Hey, look at there. Woohoo! Cool. Check that out. Nice. And like I said, this stuff is heavy duty, thick stuff. It's not bending. Now, looky here. Look at all of that room for activities. You need to get to your wiring. You need to run something new. This is the way to do it. Get rid of those underpinnings, those under splash guards, and you've got free access. So what can we see under here? Well, you can see here the little bits of the rivets that are left are sticking through. We're going to have to get rid of those in order to reuse those holes, which we'll probably want to do again because we're going to just put the same piece back into place. So it'll be nice for that hole to be ready for a new rivet. We can also see here that there's these machine screws that come down through the wood, the floor, and hold it to our Z channels, in this case, most of them anyway, supports of the floor. Now, notice this is not a self-tapping screw. This is just a point on the end. There's no drill bit on the end of this. What that means is that every single one of these screws that holds that floor down to the joists is pre-drilled, or else they would have to have a drill bit on the end of this screw to go through there. And also it's going to be, just like the upper deck, chamfered holes for that screw head to go down into. That way you don't have any kind of proud screw heads sticking up on the floor that you're going to feel with your feet. Another thing we can start to see here is one of the features that's unique to Playcraft boats, and that is that their toons are flat topped and sealed. And so you can see here, there's a weld bead on these older models that goes all the way down that attaches this flat top here to the rounded bottom part of the toon. I think they make that a slightly different now in the newer models, but regardless, they still are flat topped sealed toons, and they've got foam inside of these toons, or like closed cell styrofoam. So one of the things I'm really curious about is how's that floor holding up underneath my garden growing on top of this carpet? Yeah, don't blame me, guys, but the guy that owned this before obviously didn't take very good care of it. We've got all kind of greenery growing on here, mold, mildew. And so let's take a look underneath at this plywood, say underneath this portion right here that's growing nice and green, and just see if we can see, is there any evidence that it's rotted through? And so that corner of that fencing is right about here. And this is still solid, guys. So this marine grade plywood that they use, it's no joke. This stuff can hold up to a lot of abuse and neglect, as you can see. On something like this, it's going to be somewhat obvious because there's not a ton of pieces of this underskinning. It'll be obvious where they are supposed to go, but that's going to be months down the road when you go to put it back on. So just do yourself a favor, or heaven forbid we croak somewhere along the way and somebody else has to do this from a box of parts that we've left behind. Just mark everything as it comes off. And so normally I'm working on cars, and so I would say this is the right side in the front. But since it's a boat, let's say this is the starboard forward starboard side. And that way this will be very easy to remember where did it go. And there's no hardware in this case with the pop rivet, so it'll be good to go back on when we're done. Okay, so this one's out now, nothing to it but to do it. We'll go down this long centerpiece here on the starboard side, and we'll take all those rivets out, pop this thing loose, and slide it probably out the back. Looks like it's a nice clear path back there. And then we'll do the same for the other side, and we'll have the underskinning done. And here's what it looks like from the back. Yeah, so this will pop out and slide either forward or aft. I think I'm going to take it out the back here just because I don't have to deal with that portion of our trailer up there in this case. Well, like I said, you definitely want to have good eye protection on when you're doing this, because all those shavings from drilling out these rivet heads is going to fall down all over you. There's probably a better way to do it. If you know what it is, leave it down in the description for me. But I'm going to get back to it. Well, I went in the shop, I looked around, I can't find a face shield, and I'm too lazy to go down to the store and waste all this cool morning air. So, as White Snake is so famous for saying, here I go again on my own. I'm just keeping my head over to the side so that these shavings don't fall straight on me. Kind of reaching out in front of me quite a bit in order to get to the next one. You know, as long as the steel core of these rivets is not still in place, they come out pretty quick and easy. But it's just a little bit of a mess, and don't be surprised if you're covered in silver shaving. You look like the Tin Man when you're done. Not the easiest thing to do, getting around underneath this boat. I mean, it's pretty wide open for a small or a young person to climb around, but I'm neither. Okay. Got a couple here that's got the steel core in them I got to knock out. Gets a little loud, so hearing protection is a must. And we're going to see if we can't tap it up into place. Sort of get that core moving. And then we'll get our little punch. That's the size of the steel core. Try to set it on there. There it goes. Pop that sucker right through. All right. Now that core is out of the way, we can get our drill. Drill the head of the rivet off. All right, so I've drilled out all of the rivets on this underskin from here all the way to the front. I'm gonna go ahead and start prying it down to pop it loose of the remaining part of those rivets. Now, I don't want to pry down too much if it's hung up on something, because it's going to taco this thing and fold it, and we don't want that problem. So if you got one that's a little bit sticky still, you might need to drill it out a little bit further, or get you know, like a chisel, or I've got a big screwdriver here, and just kind of bust off what's left of the rivet head that you didn't get loose. That way it'll kind of pop loose again. There we go. That's coming down pretty good. Let me get out of here. All right. So you can see I'm starting to get that thing down. Kind of work it as much as I can from this side. And I'm just kind of giving it a bounce. I don't want it to fold up there, so I'm going to go work on it from the front now, I think. Kind of wedge it here to sort of hold itself in place. And I guess I could put a support under it. I kind of technically have one already with that guide right there, so that'll be good. Okay, so I've got the long panel here of this underskinning down as far as I can, but it's hanging up on some rivet heads that are up here at the front. Let me show you. So these rivets that came through where the two panels overlapped, I've got to get these portions off because it's not allowing this to come down. So I'm going to see if I can't drill that part off. If not, we can always chisel it off or grind it off. But then that will allow the front portion of this panel to come down and we can slide it out. All right, so let's see what the best method for getting this remaining bit is. Let's try and drill one off. That didn't seem too bad. As long as you can keep it centered up on what's left of that rivet, that'll work. And do a couple more of these. The drill method, and again, I don't want to go through the underskinning too much, but I do need to get the heads off of these things. There we go. Now, for this one over here, let me just see if I can show you a different way. I've got a screwdriver here I'm going to use as a chisel almost, and I'm going to set it on the head there and see if whacking that would knock it off. Yeah, that worked out pretty good too. So a couple different ways there for you. All right, let's see if we can't get in here and kind of loosen this thing up now. There we go. That wasn't so bad, was it? All right, check that out, guys. We got her popped down. We can go ahead and see if I can't continue getting it sort of loose and come down a little bit. Wiggle waggle it down. There we go. All right, cool. All right, I think I'm going to go out the back and just sort of see if I can't just slide it all the way out. All right, so let's see if we can't get this thing out now that it's technically free. It's kind of wedged in between the tunes a little bit still, and it's somewhat sharp, so I probably ought to be wearing gloves for this project. And I'm going to tell you guys to do so, but I'm not going to follow my own advice. Okay, so it's sort of resting on the guide between the tunes, and I'm going to let it do so until it gets past it. I'm going to turn it sideways there, let it ride along the frame rails of the trailer. And there she is. Check that out. Okay, there it is. Whew, that's a long piece of aluminum, but it stayed together very well. And again, I think that's testament to the thickness or gauge. I don't know what size gauge or thickness this is, but it's definitely not just, you know, your aluminum can thickness here. It's pretty thick. And so no bending. That thing will be good to put back in there when we're done. Let's see what it looks like underneath it. Do we have more access to the flooring and the wiring? We sure do. So there you go. Now you can see why we're taking this thing down, is so that we can get access to all this wiring and flooring and bottom of the bolts that hold all of the different fencing and seats and everything down to the floor. All right, so now that this piece is out, I'm going to go ahead and go put it on the pile of parts that we're starting to accumulate for this thing. But I always like to mark where they go. So here I've got starboard rear and I've got starboard front scratched into the front of this piece. It would be pretty obvious where it goes for most pieces, but definitely want to just make it easy on yourself or whoever ends up putting the thing back together. Just a quick aside, now that we've got the underskinning out of here, we can see that there was all of this wiring and controls, and then you've got some asphalt sort of tar or whatever sealant that's in certain areas. And I wanted to show you on the piece that I just took down what kind of impact that underskinning has had, or this stuff has had on the underskinning. So here we are in the back of the underskinning. This area that's nice and shiny and rubbed off here, that's where all those wires were laying and rubbing over the last 15 years or so. And it didn't, you know, damage the aluminum at all, and it did not rub holes in the sheathing on all of those wires and controls. So, you know, this, if you're concerned that you need to really be super careful about tethering things up and not touching anything, it really hasn't caused a problem. And also you can see here how clean the aluminum is underneath that asphalt that was protecting certain areas. Okay, so now we got the underskinning removed from the starboard side of the craft here, and we're going to go ahead and start working on our port side. Got to watch out for those wasps. Well, I got away, but they're not happy. Obviously, there's a wasp nest up underneath there. So if you're doing this, if you guys are doing this during the summertime, be careful for that. Well, I politely asked them to leave. They didn't listen, so I had to introduce them to my little friend here. Might be handy to have as part of your toolkit when working on the boat in the summertime. Okay, so where were we? Get under here and try to wedge this thing out a little bit. It's a tight fit. I mean, they do a great job over at the Playcraft factory of making everything fit so nice. Really impressed as I'm taking this thing apart. and how they put this thing together. Okay, so just like the last side, removing this, I'm going to have to get this piece of our trailer out of the way. So we'll unbolt it from here, and then we'll twist this so that it will come out and then forward. Now let's see. I think we tilted this side up and that side down, or maybe vice versa. I can't remember. One way or the other. We tilted one side down and one side up to where we could get it past these splash guards. There we go. Having to give it a little bit of a bend, but not creasing it, just sort of flexing it more than anything. There we go. Let me get out of here. Painted myself into a corner a little bit here. Well, you know, maybe I wouldn't have needed to take off of this thing after all. But regardless, I did. And here is that piece. Okay, so that one's out of the way now, and you can see access to a lot of floor space there. And we knocked down our little friend's home, unfortunately, but they just didn't want to play nice with me. So we'll go ahead and start working on that long straight piece there, just like we did the other. Okay, let's see if we can't pop this thing loose now that the rivets are undone. Just got my little screwdriver here, pry tool. Give it a little wiggle and a bounce there. See where it's hung up. It's hung up about halfway down. Oh goodness, I thought that was more wasps. Woo! Oh, that was scary. There could still be some wasp nests under here, but man, I'm on edge now from that first one. So it's hung up about halfway down. You see where you quit moving there? So I need to go down there and pop that rivet loose that it's hung up on. So I was trying to loosen it down from the back, and it's kind of hanging up right around here. So it looks like there's still a little meat on some of these rivets here. I'm going to drill out just a little bit more. See if that frees it up a little bit. It's kind of hard to get a grip in here, but it looks like we have done some good. All right, let me try and wiggle it down from the back again. All right, let's see if we freed it up some. Oh yeah, look at there. Well, it came down. I love it. Okay, so now let me get you guys scooched back a little bit, and I'm just going to slide this out the rear just like we did the other side. There we go. Nice. There we go. Both sides, underskinning has been removed. I need to mark this one as I did that one to show which one goes where. But yeah, in good shape, reusable, and giving us now really good access to everything that we need under the floor here. Now we may have to reach, you know, in through here a little bit with wrenches and all that, but now at least we got access. Okay guys, so that's it, man. I tell you, it's not too hard to get the underskinning off of one of these pontoon boats. In this case, this beautiful 24-foot Playcraft, or at least it will be beautiful when I'm done with it. Hopefully this was helpful to you guys. If so, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Heck, you don't want to miss any part of this build anyway. Next thing we need to do, we've got pretty good access to the flooring so that we can unbolt stuff off the floor of this boat now that we've got that underskinning out of the way. But we need access to come in from this side, and so we're going to have to remove all of this trim to get that. So that'll probably be on the next episode. Hope you guys tune in. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful week. God bless you all.